A guy came to me with a great business, $1.5 million a year in profit, a real solid brand, and it had contracts all over the state. He wanted $7 million for it. In the shape it was in, it was worth about $1.5 million, not 7. And the business wasn't the problem. He just couldn't prove a single one of his own numbers to me. By the time you sit down to sell, the price is already decided. It got decided years earlier by a handful of things you couldn't see, and that the people around you had no reason to warn you about. I'm Nick, and I've been inside 26 closed deals on both sides of this table, buying and selling, which means I'll tell you the things the person selling your company never will, because they only get paid when the deal closes. I don't. When an owner brings me a business, I underwrite it the exact same way I would if I were buying it myself. So this is the brutally honest advice I'd want somebody to tell me straight before I ever sold. Warning, some of this is going to sting. Let me tell you about a deal I did on the buy side. It was a chain of cell phone stores, profitable, been around for years, and it was a really good business on paper. But the owner was the business. Every carrier relationship, every hire, the marketing, the books, all of it lived in his head. So we did something we don't normally do. Our usual deal keeps the seller on for 90 to 120 days. With him, we held back 40% of his money and tied it to 2 more years in the business. We did that in order to download everything out of his head and onto the real people remaining in the business. He kept his multiple, technically, but 40% of his life's payout was suddenly hostage to 2 years he never wanted to give. And he had no leverage to argue because the problem was already built. No other buyer was going to treat him any differently. That is owner dependency. And here's how a buyer sees it. To them, you're a single point of failure sitting on top of all that profit. A business that can't run without you isn't sellable because the thing they're buying is exactly the part that walks out the door with you after the sale. Now, owner dependency, you can at least feel coming. The next one is invisible, and it's the one that took the same business from $7 million down to $1.5 million. They can't pay you for money they can't prove. That was the guy from the very top of this video. Portable toilet company. Genuinely a really good business. It was profitable, it had a real brand, recurring revenue, and it was asset light. The equipment paid for itself in just a couple of months. But he did everything himself. Sales, marketing, accounting, massive owner dependency. To make matters worse, he ran a pile of personal expenses through the business to help keep his taxes down. Not just a cell phone or a meal here and there. I mean vacations, gifts, clothes, you name it. When I looked at it, I couldn't really verify what it actually earned. The tax returns didn't match the books. Nobody could tell me why. And as a result, there was no bank that would ever lend against this business. He said it made $1.5 million a year. And it probably did. I just couldn't prove it. So for a buyer like me, there was nothing to actually buy. He wanted $7 million for it. If it was cleaned up, it could have been worth around $9 million. But as it sat, it was worth maybe $1.5 million, and only to a buyer of risky businesses, picking it up really cheap. And I just wasn't that kind of buyer. And that massive gap came down to one thing, whether a buyer could trust the numbers. So understand what a buyer is really doing here. They're not paying for your profit numbers. They're paying for profit they can trust. And I want to be careful with the word here because this isn't messy. Messy is just a filing problem, and a buyer can sometimes work around messy financials. Unreliable is a different thing. It means the numbers themselves don't tell a true story. Every dollar you hide from the IRS to save 30 cents in tax will cost you $5 to $7 at exit. And that's the one thing that caps your price no matter how good the business is. It's also the slowest thing on earth to fix because a buyer wants to see at least 2 full years of clean books behind you. And you can't fake that after the fact. So maybe one of those two just described your business. The books that don't quite tie out, or the business that can't run without you for a week? If so, keep listening because there's good news coming. But first, there's a whole other way sellers lose it once they're in the deal. If you just saw your own business in either of those, that's the best thing that could happen to you right now because you're finding out now instead of the week before you close. If you want to know where you stand, apply for a call with me directly. I'll look at your business the way a buyer will, and we'll tell you what's dragging your number down. The link is in the description. This reminds me of a commercial cleaning company that I was in the process of buying. It had $12 million in revenue, and we were 2 weeks away from closing. Then I find a wage theft class action they'd been sitting on for 18 months and never mentioned. And the lawsuit itself, it was survivable. If they put it on the table on day one, we would have walked through it, maybe made some adjustments, and we would have closed the deal. But the concealment of the facts just wasn't gonna fly with me. A $10 million deal dead 2 weeks out over something that could have just told me. Because the second you find one thing somebody buried, you stop trusting everything else they ever said. And I've been on the other side of that too. As the seller, I once had potential regulatory changes coming that would adversely affect the business I was trying to sell. I disclosed all of it in writing before we closed. Months later, those changes hit, just like I said they might. And the buyers tried to claim that I never warned them about them. Well, I pulled the documentation, showed them where I disclosed every piece of it, and it totally cleared me. So disclosure is the only thing that protects you after the money has already been wired. And if you make it through all of that clean, there's one last trap waiting at the table. And it's the one I walked straight into myself. Early in my career, before I knew better, I sold a software business. I had 2 offers in front of me. One was a smaller number, all cash at close. The other was a bigger headline number with a big piece tied to an earnout that I was absolutely sure was a slam dunk. My mistake was I chased the big number. I took less cash up front and bet the rest on that earnout. Then the industry had a shift. Right after we closed the deal, we missed the earnout and I left about 30% of the price on the table. The smaller, boring, all cash offer I turned down would have made me richer. So if a big chunk of your price is on an earnout, money you only get if the business hits targets after you've sold it, understand that headline number isn't real yet. It's a maybe. Run the math yourself before you let yourself get too excited. Cut that earnout in half in your head because it might not hit. Knock it down again because it's money that's years away, not today. If what's left doesn't beat the all cash offer, take the cash. When do you think most owners find out that they waited too long to fix all of this? You'd think it's the day the deal dies. It isn't. It's the day you sign the letter of intent, feel like the hard part is behind you, and the buyer's team sends over that dreaded document request list. 3 years of monthly financials tied to your tax returns, your org chart with who actually has the authority to make each decision, and so much more. That list is the exam, and you're sitting down to take it a few years too late to study for it. By that point, there's almost nothing left to negotiate. If the books can't be trusted, the deal just dies. If it's owner dependency, maybe it doesn't die, it gets restructured with a big piece of your money now tied to you sticking around for years to hand it all off. Either way, the negotiating's over. You're just finding out what you built now. And the broker running your sale has no reason to slow things down and help you fix any of this. They get paid to close. I don't. That's exactly why I'm the one telling you this, which means the price of your business is being set right now by what you are or aren't doing today. The owners who win this started years before they ever thought about selling. So here's the one thing to do. Before you talk to another buyer, another broker, anyone, find out how exit ready you are today. I put a free exit readiness assessment on my website, nickmolina.com. It tells you honestly where your business stands and exactly what a buyer is going to hit you on. And if you want to hear what those years on both sides of the table taught me, watch this next video.